повністю захоплено і взято під контроль Російською Федерацією.
Гвинтівка робить снайпера небезпечним.
Мій позивний Ворон!
This is the story of a sniper who once lived the simple life of an ordinary teacher. But then, something happened, something so life-altering that it forced him to become a ruthless sniper. Don't miss a second. Hit subscribe and witness a journey of courage, heroism, and deadly revenge. The story begins in a quiet region of Ukraine. In this calm and peaceful place, we see a small wooden hut. Inside lives a couple. The husband's name is Mykola and his wife is Naya. Mykola is a teacher. He works at a nearby school, teaching children mathematics. He is a wonderful teacher and almost all the students adore him, except for one boy named Ivan. Ivan is an ill-mannered troublemaker, and he never misses a chance to insult or humiliate Mykola. But Mykola never lets his words affect him. He continues to live his life peacefully, without a care. One day, while Mykola was at school, he heard the shocking news. Russia had launched an attack on Ukraine and seized control of several regions. That evening, when Mykola returned home, he was met with unexpected joy. He learned that his wife was pregnant. Overwhelmed with happiness, the couple celebrated this blessing together. The next morning, Mykola kissed his wife goodbye and left for work. But on his way, he noticed two soldiers. He didn't pay much attention to them and quickly continued on to the school. When he arrived, however, he found the entire building eerily empty. Turning to the television, he saw the news. Russia had taken over his very own city. It was only then that he realized the soldiers he had seen on the road were Russian. Fear gripped his heart as his thoughts raced back to Naya. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward home. When Mykola reached the hut, horror struck him. Those very soldiers were inside, brutally beating his pregnant wife. He rushed forward, desperate to protect her, but they turned on him as well, thrashing him mercilessly. Bleeding and broken, Mykola pleaded with them, begged them not to hurt his wife, telling them she was pregnant. But the soldiers didn't listen to a word he said. After beating Mykola half to death, they ransacked his home and then set it on fire, before walking away. Seeing her home consumed by flames, Naya was filled with fury. In desperation, she grabbed a stone and tried to strike the soldiers. But at that very moment, they opened fire. A single bullet ended her life instantly. Watching his wife die before his very eyes shattered Mykola completely. He broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, his cries echoing through the burning wreckage of what had once been his life. Hours passed in this torment, until two Ukrainian soldiers arrived and found him. They recognized who he was and helped him dig a grave, where together they buried Naya. With her death, Mykola's world collapsed entirely. He had no home, no family, nothing left. All that remained inside him was a fire for revenge. He swore that, no matter what, he would hunt down those soldiers and destroy them. Driven by this resolve, Mykola decided to join the Ukrainian army. The two soldiers escorted him to their base, but when their commanding officer laid eyes on Mykola, he grew suspicious and angry. He refused to recruit him, fearing Mykola might be a Russian spy. In that moment, Mykola told him everything. He poured out the truth, swearing that his only goal was to kill Russian soldiers and fight for his country's freedom. Hearing the conviction in his voice, the colonel finally agreed to give him a chance. The very next day, Mykola's training began. But since he was just an ordinary man, the training was grueling, almost unbearable. His body ached, his hands blistered, his spirit tested, yet one fellow officer took him under his wing, teaching him how to assemble and disassemble a gun, step by step. Everyone at the camp believed Mykola would never become a real soldier. They whispered, doubted, and shook their heads, but Mykola refused to surrender. Broken, yet unbending, he pushed forward, determined to turn his pain into power. One night, Mykola told his comrades not to call him by his real name anymore, because his code name was Raven. Hearing this, everyone burst into laughter. They mocked him, telling him that no soldier simply gets a code name. It has to be earned. But Mykola wasn't shaken by their words. He kept pushing forward, continuing his training with unbroken focus. One day, Mykola Sr. gathered the unit and announced that their group had far too few snipers. If they were to stand a chance against the Russians, that number had to increase. Then he asked the men, How many of you are willing to become snipers? At his question, a few stepped forward, and among them was Makola. He, too, wanted to become a sniper, but when his senior saw him, he shook his head. You're not ready to be a sniper. You can't even properly assemble and disassemble a gun. Becoming a sniper is far beyond your reach. To this, Makola stood tall and replied, All I need is one chance to prove myself. Give me that chance and I'll assemble and disassemble this gun in under 20 seconds. Hearing his bold claim, the senior smirked, placed a rifle on the table, and ordered Makola to step forward. Now, to prove himself, Makola tied a blindfold over his eyes. Without hesitation, he swiftly disassembled the rifle and then reassembled it just as quickly. The entire task took him only 18 seconds. Seeing his speed and precision, everyone was stunned. They clapped for him, impressed by his skill. Witnessing his ability firsthand, the senior finally allowed Makola to enter sniper training. During training, Makola was handed an old, outdated rifle, while the others were given modern weapons. Frustrated, Makola demanded a modern gun for himself, but his senior looked him in the eye and said, If you want that rifle, you'll have to prove you deserve it. Makola had no choice. With no other option, he accepted what was given to him and walked away. As training continued, the senior explained that a sniper must remain unshaken no matter what situation arises. A true sniper does not move an inch from his position, keeping his aim locked on the target at all times. To test this, the senior fired bullets dangerously close to each trainee, one after another. Anyone who flinched, even slightly, was immediately disqualified. Then came Makola's turn. Shots cracked around him, but he didn't budge, not even a fraction of an inch. His aim stayed locked, steady, and unbroken. In the next training exercise, the snipers were shown their target only once. After that, their eyes were covered, and they had to fire by estimating the position of their target. Most of the others managed to complete the test successfully, but Makola failed. His rifle was old and unreliable, making such a precise shot nearly impossible. The following training was even tougher. The snipers had to shoot their targets under the fleeting light of a flare, and that too in the pitch-black darkness of night. The senior fired a flare into the sky and everyone took aim, but not a single one of them managed to hit the target. Makola, however, did not rush to fire. Instead, he observed carefully, measuring the distance to his target in the brief flare of light. Then, using his knowledge of mathematics, he calculated the perfect shot and pulled the trigger. His bullet hit the target dead on. The senior was deeply impressed. Right then, he granted Makola the codename he had long desired, Raven. Days passed, and Makola threw himself into his training with every ounce of strength he had. Finally, the day arrived when the results of their training were to be declared. In front of everyone, the colonel saluted Makola and told him he had passed the test. A few days later, the colonel came to Makola once again and said, "Pack your gear. We have a mission." News had arrived that a group of Russian soldiers had captured a checkpoint. Soon, Makola's team reached the location. They set up their positions, their rifles aimed, ready to strike the Russian soldiers at the checkpoint, but just as they were about to fire, a vehicle appeared, approaching the checkpoint. The Russian soldiers stopped the car and ordered the passengers to step out. They checked their passports, then thoroughly searched the vehicle. When they found nothing suspicious, the soldiers allowed the people to leave, but kept their passports with them. When the passengers protested, the Russians beat them mercilessly. Watching this unfold, the colonel gave a sharp command, "Fire!" In an instant, bullets rained down, and the Russian soldiers were cut down where they stood. Just like that, their first mission was complete. After the operation, the team returned to base. But Makola noticed something unsettling. Many of his fellow soldiers were missing. He was told they had been sent on another mission. The next day, Makola received grim news. Many of those comrades had been killed. They had all fallen to a Russian sniper. His name was Seri, and he was the deadliest marksman in all of Russia. Days went by, and Makola prepared for another mission with the soldiers still at his side. When they reached the new location, they carefully planted mines all around and then took up their positions, waiting in silence for the enemy. After a short while, the Russian soldiers arrived at the location, and among them was Ivan. Yes, the very same Ivan who used to torment Makola back in school. Now, he had joined the Russian army. The moment their boots touched the landmines, a thunderous explosion erupted. In an instant, they were all blown apart. Watching this, the colonel turned to Mykola and told him he should feel no sorrow for Ivan's death. Joining the Russian army had been Ivan's own choice. With the mission complete, the soldiers returned to their base camp. There, the colonel showed Mykola a photo of his family. He told him that he had his wife and 2 young daughters, but his daughters had no idea their father was a soldier. Hearing this, Mykola opened up as well. He told the colonel his entire story, how the Russian soldiers had brutally murdered his wife. As he spoke, emotion overwhelmed him, his voice breaking under the weight of memory. But the colonel steadied him, reminding him to stay strong. The next morning, they set out on another mission. This one was crucial. Intelligence had come in that a squad of Russian soldiers would soon be passing through that very route. Mykola and the colonel quickly reached the location, took up their positions, and waited in silence, ready for the kill. A short while later, they spotted 2 Russian soldiers waiting for the rest of their team. Mykola immediately noticed something chilling. One of them was the very soldier who had shot his wife, and now that soldier was perfectly in his sights. Mykola asked for permission to fire, but the colonel refused. Anger flared in Mykola. His face turned red with rage. He had to kill his wife's murderer, no matter what. He asked for permission to fire again, but once more, the colonel denied him. Mykola's patience snapped. He pulled the trigger. The bullet hit its mark. The soldier fell dead on the spot. But in that instant, the Russians discovered their location. Worse yet, Sari, the deadliest sniper in all of Russia, was also in position. And now, Sari knew exactly where they were. The colonel understood this immediately. He began scanning for Sari's position, but before he could pinpoint him, Sari fired a single headshot. The colonel was killed instantly. Mykola realized the terrible truth. The Russians now knew their location, and his one mistake had just cost the colonel his life. Meanwhile, the remaining Russian soldiers opened heavy fire on Mykola. Seeing the situation worsening, Mykola made a quick decision. He would have to retreat. He lifted the colonel's body and began retreating from his position. Quickly, he made it out of enemy territory and headed straight back to his base. Mykola was filled with grief over the colonel's death and blamed himself entirely. There, he swore an oath. He would kill Sari and avenge the colonel's death, no matter the cost. Soon, Mykola received word of 2 Russian snipers in the area. Without hesitation, he set out on his next mission. He reached the location, took aim, and waited. Almost immediately, he took down 1 sniper, but in the exchange of fire, a bullet struck him. Despite his wound, Mykola refused to give up. With sheer determination, he managed to eliminate the second sniper as well. Now, severely injured, he retreated to a secret base to rest and tend to his wounds. During this time, he received a call from an army major. The major informed Mykola that they had identified the sniper who had killed the colonel. Mykola returned to base, where the major briefed everyone about the deadly sniper. The major explained that the sniper's name was Sari, and he was Russia's finest marksman. Sari had already killed 6 of Ukraine's most skilled snipers, and the major warned that they could not afford to take him lightly. The major explained that Sari was a sniper who rarely changed his position. He would sit in one precise location, patiently hunting his enemies. Now, the team devised a plan to get to Sari's position. According to the plan, the first team would attack the Russian soldiers from the front. While they were distracted by this assault, the second team would strike from behind. Using the chaos as cover, Mykola would slip inside the building and take the shot that would finally kill Sari. Once the strategy was set, everyone moved toward the location. Upon arrival, all the snipers took up their positions and aimed their rifles. Meanwhile, Mykola stealthily entered the building. Inside, he spotted 2 Russian soldiers. Without hesitation, he eliminated them and moved further inside. He then signaled his team. At his signal, they struck, taking down all the remaining soldiers. Sari noticed something strange. None of his team members were reporting in. A sense of alarm washed over him. He climbed to the rooftop, where a sniper was supposed to be stationed, but when he arrived, he saw that the sniper was dead. It dawned on Sari that the Ukrainian soldiers had surrounded him on all sides. He tried to call for backup, but it would take at least 10 minutes for reinforcements to arrive. Realizing the urgency, Sari quickly returned to his position and began searching for the Ukrainian soldiers. But then, Sari noticed a small toy, one that Mykola's wife had given him. Before Sari could react, Mykola attacked. He fought with ruthless precision, stabbing him repeatedly until Sari was dead. The struggle alerted another sniper inside the building, but before he could act, Makola threw a grenade near him. The explosion killed the last remaining sniper. Meanwhile, the backup team Sari had called reached the building, but they had no idea that Sari was already dead. When they tried to call him, Makola picked up the phone. He warned them coldly, "You're all going to die." Then, without hesitation, he shot the truck driver. The gunfire caused chaos among the Russian soldiers. They scrambled out of the truck, unaware that Ukrainian snipers were lying in ambush, waiting for them. One by one, the Ukrainian soldiers opened fire, taking down every Russian with deadly accuracy. A few days after this mission, Makola visited his wife's grave. The promise he had made to avenge her was finally fulfilled. He had eliminated everyone responsible for her death in the colonels. There, he swore to serve his country until his last breath. With that, Makola walked away, and the story of his vengeance and courage came to a close. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next video, but until then, stay safe and keep chilling.